Welcome back to Narratrix of Nightmares, and to our growing community. To all our new subscribers, thank you for joining us. And to our listeners in India, tonight's story is especially for you. There's something about grief that pulls at the edge of the world, makes it thin, makes it whisper. Tonight we follow a grief therapist in Delhi, a rational man, a man of science, until a widow walks into his practice and tells him her husband is not dead. He is folded into the walls. This is a story about sorrow, silence, and the things we refuse to believe, even when they've already begun to believe in us. Let's begin. My name is Dr. Karan Mehra. I'm a grief therapist. I see the kind of pain most people spend their whole lives avoiding. But even among those stories of loss, of crumbling worlds, Rahana Ahmed was different. She arrived for our first session on a Tuesday afternoon, late February, when Delhi's skies still pretend to be winter. She wore a faded ivory sari with a tear near the shoulder, one she hadn't bothered to mend. Her hair was unbrushed, her eyes rimmed red, not from crying, but from staring too long at something no one else could see. She sat down across from me, back straight, lips tight, her hands folded perfectly in her lap. They told me to come, she said flatly. Who told you? I asked gently. She blinked slowly. The walls. They're speaking now. Not always, just at night, when I lean close. They say he's here, not gone, folded in. Rahana, I said, choosing my words carefully. What happened to your husband? She didn't flinch. Her fingers tightened just slightly in her lap. He died, she said. Or they say he did. Who says? The men in the ambulance, my brother, the imam, everyone. She turned her gaze toward the window, though there was no view, only a frosted pane. But I was there when he changed. I waited. We were in the sitting room. He was talking about how cold it felt, how strange the light looked that day, like the sun was flickering behind a curtain, even though there were no clouds. He got up to check the wiring, and then she swallowed. He pressed his hand to the wall. To the wall. The place where the frame had fallen, the one with our wedding photo. It had left a little crack there. He touched it and said he felt something. Cold. Breathing. Like there was air behind it, but not air. A presence. She turned back to me. He said, Ree, do you feel that? And when I looked, he was gone. Gone, as in collapsed. No. She shook her head, not frantic, just firm, certain. Gone into it, into the wall, like paper folding in on itself. He didn't scream, he didn't fall. He just receded, like he was being absorbed. And all that was left was a shadow on the plaster. Rahana, may I ask, was there anyone else in the house that day? No one, who would believe me. Her voice cracked, the first hint of emotion breaking through. And the next day, the crack was gone, and in its place, his voice, faint, but I know it. It's him. I've heard metaphor used in grief. I've heard clients say their spouses vanished, or that their homes swallowed up their memories. But Rahana didn't speak in metaphor. She spoke like someone reporting a fact, calm, grounded, not raving. And yet, has the voice changed, Rahana? No, but the house has. How so? She glanced at me just once and said, "It knows I've started talking to you." She returned the following week with a small silver recorder, the kind I hadn't seen in years, old, scratched, too heavy to be new. She placed it between us on the low table and didn't speak. I hesitated, then pressed play. At first, just a low hum of electric interference, a fan spinning, maybe distant traffic, and then something else. Ree, I'm cold. Male voice, soft, barely above the hum, but there, and unmistakably intimate. It's not night here, not really. I see them when I close my eyes. I can't close my eyes, Ree. The tape stopped. Rahana looked at me, unblinking. He says more, but only when the walls think I'm asleep. I've worked with schizophrenia. I've heard auditory hallucinations relayed in obsessive detail. But this wasn't that. The voice didn't sound imagined. It sounded trapped. Too slow, too physical, like it was being pulled through something. Still, I reminded myself, grief can be a masterful mimic. A mind undone by loneliness is capable of miracles and horrors both. Rahana, I said gently, may I ask, were you and your husband religious? She stiffened slightly. Not devout, but his grandmother. She used to leave ash in the corners of every room, burnt cloves. He always found it silly. Did she say why? To keep them out. Them. The old ones. The ones that don't like mirrors. She met my eyes again. They hate reflections, but they love walls. That night, after our session, I returned to my flat in Saket. I poured myself a drink, sat down, tried to write notes, and then I looked up. There, just behind my desk, was a long hairline crack in the paint. A crack I hadn't noticed before. And for a brief moment, I swear it moved. I woke up just after 3 a.m., a time we therapists know well. The hour of unfinished business, the hour our clients most often tell us they heard something. I hadn't meant to fall asleep on the couch, but my pen was still in my hand, and beside me on the pad, 5 hash marks, drawn with mechanical precision. I didn't remember drawing them, but they were mine. My pen, my paper, my hand. Later that day, Rahana arrived 15 minutes early. She walked straight in and sat without a word. "Have you had the dream yet?" she asked before I could even close the door. "What dream?" She tilted her head. The long hallway, the folded door, the thing humming behind it. I froze, because I had dreamt something. Not all of it, not clearly, but the hallway. Yes, long, lit by nothing, and a door at the end, bent, almost concave, not broken, folded. "Rahana, how did you know?" "I didn't. The house did. It said it would come for you too." I tried to ground us, asked her about her husband again, about his life, his habits, what she loved about him. She told me he laughed with his whole body, that he fixed fans that didn't need fixing, that he hated the smell of mustard oil but used it anyway because that's what his mother had done. She smiled for the first time as she spoke of him. But then, he never believed in them, she said, until they started knocking. Knocking? It's how they tell you the wall is ready. I walked her to the door. She paused just before leaving, her hand on the frame. "Kuranji," she said. "I've never told anyone this, not even the police." I waited. When I went to the mortuary, the body wasn't his. It looked like him, but it wasn't. I knew because he had no scar on his knee. He had one, from when he fell off his bike in '98. And this man? Nothing. Smooth, like paper. Folded, like paper. I cancelled my next session. Told myself it was just fatigue, transference, vicarious trauma. But in the back of my mind, I kept seeing that crack on my wall, thin, harmless, except that it had grown. She invited me to the house on a Thursday. "Just once," she said, "so you'll believe me." I shouldn't have gone, but there was something in the way she said it. No urgency, no pleading, just a soft inevitability, like the next page in a book already being turned. The house stood in Nizamuddin East, old but not decrepit, tiled roof, rusted gate, one of those Delhi homes where time feels layered instead of linear. You could smell decades of incense and old books in the air. She led me in without ceremony. There were no obvious signs of damage, no strange smells, no flickering lights, but the stillness. It was dense, like a vacuum behind every surface. The walls weren't quiet. They were listening. She took me to a room at the back of the house, small, square, windowless. The air was slightly cooler, though no fan was on. On the far wall, dozens of small black marks, faint, almost brushed on, symbols, not written, but etched somehow, with soot, burnt ash. "That's where he vanished," she whispered. She pointed at the center of the wall, where, sure enough, there was a faint outline, like something had pressed against the paint from the other side. I stepped closer, unthinking. My hand reached out, not to touch it, but to feel it. The moment my fingers hovered inches from the wall, I felt a pull. Not physical, not wind. A thought, not my own. It whispered, "You've come too close to carry it back now." I staggered back. The room spun. The air grew impossibly still, like the walls were holding their breath. "Did you hear it?" she asked. I nodded. I should have walked out, called for a psych eval, told her she needed help, but instead I asked, "What's behind it?" And she said, "A djinn, but not one from storybooks. This one doesn't grant wishes. It just folds what it finds into memories, into corners, into silence. That's how it lives." She pressed a small mirror into my hand. "Hold it up, just for a second." I did, and in the reflection, I didn't see myself. Not at all. Just the room and a second shadow, longer than mine, reaching toward me. I dropped the mirror, and when I looked back at the wall, the outline was deeper. Rahana didn't show up to her next session, nor the one after that. I called, no answer. I emailed, no reply. On the third week, I visited the house again. It was locked, not abandoned, just still, as if it had never been lived in. I asked a chai seller across the road how long it had been vacant. He looked at me, puzzled. "Sir, that courtie's been locked for years, since that woman died." "Which woman?" "Don't know her name. Husband disappeared. She went mad, burnt the bedroom. The city sealed it up. That was at least 6 years ago." "But I met her. I worked with her. Maybe I was part of it. Maybe I wasn't her therapist. Maybe I was the final witness, the one she needed to believe, so she could pass it on. Because since then, the dreams have come nightly. The same hallway, the same folding door, but now it's closer. And the wall behind my bed, it hums. If you're hearing this, please remember me. My name is Dr. Karan Mehra. I live in Saket. I had a life, a practice. I was real. But if the walls have their way, you won't remember any of this. Just a shadow, a whisper. They fold people, not to punish, not to kill, just to keep them quiet. Rahana tried to warn me, and now I think it's my turn. Don't look at the crack. Don't listen to the hum. And whatever you do, don't answer when the wall says your name. Grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it sounds like a hum behind the walls. Sometimes it falls into silence, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be named. If you're still here, remember Karan, remember Rahana, and ask yourself, what would you do if the ones you lost never really left, but were trapped in the corners of your life, folded into the wallpaper, calling to you in the quiet. Not every story wants to scare you. Some just want you to believe.
My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.